Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to getting informed on some pretty fascinating topics that you might not hear about every day.
And today, we're really diving into something remarkable.
Yeah, starting with the story that, well, it apparently made someone literally jump out of their seat. Picture this. Robert L. Wise, he's an ordained Reformed clergyman, has a doctorate in psychology.
Right.
And he's in one of these healing of the memories sessions.
Yeah.
He's visualizing himself, like, as an 8-year-old kid, carrying this huge symbolic bundle of worries.
Okay.
Then he's told to visualize Jesus. And what happens next, at least according to him, felt incredibly real.
How so?
He describes seeing Jesus moving towards him very slowly, extending loving hands, and then lifting this heavy bundle off his back. But it was apparently so forceful that Wise actually sprang up from the pew. He said it felt completely undeniably transformative.
Wow. That's a powerful image, isn't it? A very subjective experience, but one that feels so genuine it almost demands you accept it as, well, real.
It absolutely does. And that undeniable feeling, that's really our jumping off point today. We're taking a deep dive into what we're calling psychological salvation. We're exploring these modern inner healing and visualization techniques, especially how they pop up in Christian contexts.
Right. And our goal, our mission here, is to sort of uncover the roots of these practices. Where did they come from? What are the supposed benefits?
And also the surprising parallels, right, to ancient traditions, even secular psychology. We want to understand what's really going on.
Exactly. How something that seems on the surface so beneficial might actually carry some unexpected implications.
So for this deep dive, we're using insights and some challenging questions drawn from a critical look at these practices, specifically excerpts from The Seduced Roots of Self-Deification.
Yeah, it's a text that really pushes you to think critically about this stuff, which seems pretty widespread now.
Okay, so let's unpack this power of experience first, because, like with Wise's story, that subjective feeling is incredibly compelling.
It really is. And the source we're looking at highlights this, that the sheer power of these experiences, kicked off by visualization, can feel so profoundly real.
So real that they kind of prove themselves, right, to the person experiencing it.
Exactly. It proves its own validity. And this isn't just convincing for non-Christians. The source notes that prominent Christian leaders have embraced these methods based on that felt authenticity.
And when it comes to visualizing Jesus specifically, proponents seem to give a lot of leeway.
Yeah, like Rita Bennett. She apparently suggests that the, quote, accuracy of the picture isn't important. You can see him as your favorite artist pictures him, if you like.
Okay, so total freedom there. But then she adds something interesting.
Right. She also says it's more than just imagination. She believes it's necessary to follow his guidance, which is a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
It is. Freedom on one hand, but also a real interaction requiring guidance on the other.
And C.S. Levitt, another proponent mentioned, tells people to literally turn on your imagination screen to picture the Lord.
Turn on your imagination screen.
And he asserts quite strongly that the Lord doesn't care one bit how we visualize him.
So again, this sense of freedom. Calvin Miller apparently agrees everyone's free to picture Jesus, however feels right to them.
This free-form personal visualization then supposedly becomes or leads to a real interaction.
And this brings us to specific methods, like Rita Bennett's reliving the scene with Jesus. Tell us about that.
Well, this is where you actively try to recreate your past, but you visualize Jesus being present during those past moments.
Like conception, birth, early traumas.
Exactly. She even gives really specific examples of things to, quote, pray about for healing from the first 2 years of life.
Like what?
Things like if the child was unduly left hungry or wet or in pain needing to be burped. Really basic infant needs.
Wow. And the source quotes a prayer counselor. Where was it? Cathedral of St. Philip in Atlanta.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And this counselor emphasized how much this method helped their inner healing work, right from the moment of conception through the fetal period and birth process.
So it's basically trying to rewrite history, or at least reinterpret it through this visualized presence.
Pretty much. Francis McNett's view is mentioned too, that Jesus, being the Lord of time, can literally walk back with us into the past to heal this inner child.
And the source gives a really striking example involving Ruth Carter Stapleton.
Oh yeah, that one is memorable. She worked with a young woman who felt intense self-loathing because she was, quote, an illegitimate child.
Okay.
Stapleton led her in a guided meditation where Christ was visualized as being present during the very act of fornication that led to her conception.
Whoa. And the goal was?
To reframe it, making the act holy and pure, an act of God, ordained by your Heavenly Father.
That definitely brings us right to the core question, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
If this visualized Jesus comes alive, offers guidance, offers solutions, even reframes past events, is it actually the real Jesus?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't
Yeah.
it? Especially given how powerful these experiences feel.
Our source points out something pretty crucial here. There's a lack of biblical examples.
Right. Nowhere in the Bible does it teach or show Jesus appearing simply because someone visualized him.
And the text warns against treating him like a magic genie to be conjured up through the power of our minds.
Which then leads to a really fascinating and maybe uncomfortable parallel the source draws.
Which is?
The parallel to spirit guides in occultism.
Okay, tell me more.
The source explains that these guides have apparently been contacted for thousands of years using the exact same visualization techniques.
The very same ones used in inner healing.
That's the claim. And what's more, these spirit guides are described as feeling equally as real.
And the guidance they offer.
Also described as no less accurate or compelling than the guidance received from the visualized Jesus.
That's a significant comparison, and the source really lays out its concerns, right? 4 key points.
Yes, pretty stark conclusions. First, the procedure isn't biblical. Simple as that. Second, it's a technique with a long history, thousands of years in sorcery.
Right.
Third, something is happening that's more than just everyday imagination. The experiences are too powerful.
And
Fourth, and this is the big warning, practitioners might be opening themselves up to demonic influence.
wow. The source uses the Ouija board analogy, doesn't
It
it?
does. Like God might protect someone who tries it innocently out of ignorance.
But it's a whole different thing to assume God would actually choose to speak through something like that, a divination tool.
Exactly. And it's not just about visualizing Jesus either. The source broadens the scope.
How so?
It points out that similar results, miraculous cures, ecstatic feelings, personal transformations have happened when people visualize other figures too.
Like who?
Spirits of the dead, saints, ascended masters, figures like various Hindu gurus, or even Buddha.
So if you can get these results visualizing anyone, does the who even matter?
That's precisely the question it raises. And it brings in Carl Jung's perspective via Morton Kelsey.
What did Jung think?
Jung apparently saw no real difference between visualizing Jesus or Buddha, which, if you follow that logic,
Then maybe it doesn't matter who you believe in. It's just a mental technique, a mind trip, as the source puts it.
that seems to be the implication. Kelsey even shares his own experience using active imagination, Jung's technique, to meet with his deceased mother.
Yeah.
He said, "It seemed real to me."
It really throws the nature of the experience into question, doesn't it? Is it divine, psychological, something else?
Mm-hmm. And this ties into a broader point the source makes about what it calls psychospirituality on the move.
Meaning?
Meaning how modern psychology, often seen as, scientific and neutral,
Yeah.
is viewed by the source as actually leading back towards something like primitive paganism, shamanism.
Yeah.
And crucially, these ideas are entering the church.
It's not just a fringe thing then. You mentioned Richard Foster earlier.
Right. He's quoted as saying, "We simply must become convinced of the importance of thinking and experiencing in images."
But the source makes a distinction there, right, between normal imagination and these specific techniques.
Exactly. It separates valid uses like artists, architects, thinking visually from techniques specifically designed to manipulate reality or evoke the appearance and help of deity. It's that second category that's the focus here.
And this isn't just theoretical. There was a real paradigm shift happening, wasn't there? The source mentions John Wimber's course at Fuller Seminary.
Yes, MC 510 at the School of World Missions. By early 1985, over 700 students had taken it.
And the result?
Over 90% reported experiencing a paradigm shift, moving towards an altered worldview.
Meaning, what kind of altered worldview?
It means, according to the source, that more and more Christian leaders started interpreting the Bible through this new lens, a grid of mysticism blended with Jungian psychology.
And we see this reflected in quotes from other leaders, too.
Definitely, like the Catholic priests Dennis and Matthew Lynn, who apparently said, "Whatever I vividly relive my imagination affect me as if I really experienced it."
So the imagined experience has the power of a real one.
That's the idea. And there's a Lutheran pastor, William Vasweg. He initially saw imagination negatively, even referenced Genesis 6.5 about man's corrupt imagination.
Okay.
But he later came to believe that imagination is one of the most important keys to effective praying, and that God touches me through my imagination.
So if God touches you through imagination, And the specific image doesn't matter much, as others suggest.
Then the identity of the visualized figure becomes less critical than the experience itself,
Right.
right? Which takes us deeper into the psychological roots and the shamanic connections.
Right. The source talks about a primal delusion shared by inner healing and some secular therapies. What's that?
It's the core belief that healing comes from digging up really deeply buried childhood memories, sometimes even from the womb.
And these buried memories are supposedly controlling present behavior.
That's the theory. And the source argues this often ends up shifting blame onto the past, onto other people, instead of focusing on your choices now.
And the shamanism connection is made pretty explicit.
It's very explicit. It quotes the OJI Foundation, which promotes Eastern ideas describing shamanism.
What's their description?
They describe it as involving visualized journeys with a spirit guide, using archetypal exercises and rituals. The goal: to awaken dormant abilities and, importantly, achieve the extraction of spiritual pain and illness.
Okay, so visualized journeys, spirit guides, extracting pain.
And then the source draws the direct comparison. Substitute Jesus for spirit guide and inner healing with archetypal exercises and rituals, and shamanism's connection is undeniable.
That's a strong statement, but maybe even more concerning is the foundation this is built on, psychologically speaking.
Yes, the source argues it rests heavily on a misinformed acceptance of Freud's discredited theory of psychic determinism.
Okay, break that down. Psychic determinism.
Essentially, it's the Freudian idea that our behavior is controlled by unconscious impulses, mostly rooted in the past, which implies
We don't really have free will or personal accountability.
that's the implication the source draws. And it brings in Martin Bobgin's critique.
What does Bogdan say?
He says flat out that from a biblical basis and from a scientific basis, there really is no support for the use of the unconscious as used in Freudian psychology and as borrowed by the inner healers.
So no support biblically or scientifically for that Freudian concept as used here.
Right. The source also points to Freud's other big idea, that our adult personality is basically set by age 5 through these psychosexual stages.
Okay. And where did Freud and Jung even get these ideas?
Crucially, the source says they developed their main theories based on memories that patients recalled under hypnosis.
Hypnosis. And the source views that
As an ancient shamanic practice that is, quote, at best unreliable and most likely demonic.
Wow. So the very foundation is built on potentially unreliable or worse experiences gained through a practice linked to shamanism.
That's the argument. And you see similar ideas play out in other therapies too, like rebirthing.
Ah, yes. Tell us about that one.
It's a secular therapy, but its foundation came partly from Stanislav Grof's work exploring LSD-induced fantasies.
LSD.
Yes, using what he called psycholytic LSD-based therapy. Rebirthing connects to ancient mythology, fertility cults, and the source even calls it the mind science cult's answer to Christian baptism.
But scientifically, can memories from the womb or birth even be real?
The source points out the counter-evidence. The prenatal brain simply isn't developed enough to store memories like that.
Which brings us to this problem of pseudo-memories, right? False memories.
Exactly. Memories that feel completely real that people are convinced happened, but were actually created, often by the therapy process itself.
The source gives primal scream therapy as another example. Arthur Yanov.
Right. His theory involved a primal pool of pain from childhood and the need to return to the major primal scene, usually around ages 5 to 7.
And the sessions sound intense.
Oh, incredibly so. The source describes group sessions as utter chaos and outright bedlam.
Like what?
Adults sucking baby bottles, others cuddling stuffed toys, still others in adult-sized cribs. Apparently. What sound like gagging, thrashing, writhing, gurgling, choking, and wailing, as they supposedly revisited these primals that go all the way back to the womb in the birth process.
That's quite a scene. It makes you wonder about the process itself.
It really does.
Yeah.
And connecting this back to the potential for creating memories, the source mentions Dr. Carney Landis from Columbia University's Psychiatric Institute.
What did he find?
He found psychoanalysis actually made him worse. His analyst even admitted it could create a neurosis in a normal person.
Create a neurosis.
Yeah. Landis concluded that these childhood fantasies, memories, are actually produced by analysis rather than revealed by it.
So the therapy itself could be manufacturing the very memories it claims to uncover.
That's the danger highlighted. And the tragic outcome the source suggests for some Christians involved in inner healing is that they get depressed by the idea of hidden hurts.
And then the process creates these pseudo-memories.
Yes, which confuses them further. making them reliant on these techniques instead of just simple faith and trust in God.
Okay, so after exploring all the experiences, the parallels, the psychological roots, the dangers, what does this mean for biblical teaching on healing and responsibility?
Well, the source presents a strong counter-argument based on Scripture.
What's the core of that argument?
It argues that the Bible consistently points to our present moral choices as determining our condition and actions, not past traumas dictating everything.
And there's a lack of biblical precedent for these inner healing methods.
A complete lack, according to the source. No prophet, priest, or apostle in the Bible is ever shown dealing with repressed emotions or memories in this way.
It uses Paul as an example, right?
Yes. Despite Paul having a pretty traumatic past, his intense legalism, violently persecuting Christians, his approach wasn't to dig it all up.
What did he say?
He said, "Forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal." That's from Philippians 3. Forgetting, not endlessly reliving.
Yet this seems to directly contradict what some major inner healing proponents teach. The Sandfords, for example.
John and Paula Sandford, yes. Authors of a well-known book on the topic. They apparently insist on searching the whole history of the person.
Searching for what?
For resentments that lie totally beneath both the heart and mind, having originated either in the spirit in the womb or at birth.
Resentments from the womb, how does that work?
They give a detailed example of a woman whose spirit in the womb supposedly judged her parents.
And the consequence of this womb judgment.
According to them, it doomed her to A,
Yeah.
reject someone, her husband, as she was rejected, B, drink, C, commit adultery. All traced back to a judgment made before birth.
That sounds incredibly deterministic. So what's the biblical alternative presented by the source?
That's much simpler, really. All that we need for dealing with such problems is found in the fact that Christ died for our sins and has risen from the dead to live his life in us.
So it's about Christ's work and his life in the believer now.
Exactly. Love, forgiveness for others, these flow from receiving God's love and forgiveness. It's the fruit of the Spirit, not the result of excavating supposed womb memories.
And the source uses some pretty strong language to describe these visualization techniques aimed at remaking the past. What does it call them?
It calls them a Christianized form of mental alchemy that lies at the heart of shamanism, even comparing them to basic sorcery.
Sorcery. Why?
Because it's seen as an attempt to manipulate reality through mental techniques. The argument is that this practice is unscriptural.
Okay.
It denies God's omnipotence, implying he somehow needs our creative visualization to make his healing effective.
Or worse.
At worst, the source claims it sets us up as gods who can, through prescribed rituals, use him and his power as our tools.
Wow. And that ties into the Ruth Carter Stapleton quote from a Unity church.
It does seem to align.
Yeah.
She's quoted saying, "God is wholeness, and you are God. In you he lives and moves and has his being." That blurring of lines between creator and created.
This really brings us back to the need for discernment, doesn't it?
Absolutely critical. The source wraps up this section emphasizing that point. It is absolutely necessary to allow the Bible to judge every experience.
And it identifies two main attitudes that open the door to error.
Yes. First, when experience itself is taken as self-authenticating, basically making biblical checks seem unnecessary or secondary.
If it feels real, it must be right.
Kind of. And second, when psychological theories are accepted without question and used to justify practices that aren't actually supported by the Bible.
And the source feels these attitudes are becoming more common.
Yes, it suggests they're becoming widespread, unfortunately.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here in this deep dive on psychological salvation. We looked at inner healing, visualization.
We saw the powerful allure of those personal transformative experiences, definitely.
But then we also explored the surprising connections to ancient occult practices, shamanism, even discredited psychological theories like Freud's.
And all along, these critical questions about authenticity, about biblical authority, about where genuine healing actually comes from.
Yeah, this whole deep dive really underscores how important discernment is, especially today with so much information flying around.
Particularly when something feels good or seems to work quickly. It challenges you, the listener, to look past the immediate feeling to the foundations. What's really behind it?
So that leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Given everything we've discussed, what criteria do you use? How do you evaluate sources of truth and potential healing in your own life?
How do you tell the difference between genuine, biblically sound transformation and just a really compelling but maybe misleading experience.
Because, as the writer Carol Tavris pointed out, and it's a great quote, many people who are not fooled by astrology for 1 minute subject themselves to therapy for years, where the same errors of logic and interpretation often occur.
That's definitely something worth thinking about. How do you avoid those errors of logic when evaluating what claims to offer healing or truth?